Today, one of my beehives swarmed, and I just happened to have somebody who wanted me to move bees into her hive for her. So I moved her hive over by the swarm, and I used my bee brush and a bucket to brush a bunch of the bees into that bucket and dump them into the hive. I smoked the bees towards the top of the swarm so that they would move downward, and I continued this process a few times, scraping the bees off and grabbing them with my hand and putting them into that hive so that the queen would eventually get into the hive and all of the worker bees would move in with her. Using my hands was more gentle than using the bee brush and a bucket, and I was worried that the bucket would hurt the queen, so I was grabbing handfuls and dumping them in there. I moved around to the other side of the small tree because the bees moved towards the back, so I continued to grab the bees by handfuls and drop them into the hive. You can see hundreds and thousands of bees flying around and landing on my bee suit, but they're not being aggressive at all. Swarm bees are rarely aggressive, and many people do this without even wearing a bee suit, but I don't like to get stung, so I always wear a bee suit just to be safe. There are several small branches that are in the way here, so I did have to use the bee brush to brush the bees from the nooks and crannies of this branch. But you can see a lot of the bees are starting to land on top of that hive, which most likely means the queen is already in there. I'm going to move the camera to the side of the hive here real quick so that you can see the mass of bees on the side of the hive and on the ground rapidly working their way into the hive because they can smell and sense the queen pheromone, and all they want to do is be with their queen. So the bees are working their way in. I know I have the queen now, so now I just have to get the lid on the hive. To do that, I'm going to grab my smoker and I'll smoke the lower part of this hive and get those bees to work their way in so that I can slide the lid on this hive, and eventually all of the bees in this swarm will work their way into the hive, and I can move it to a new location, and the new hive will start to form, and the new queen will go out and get mated and start laying eggs within the next couple of weeks. The smoke does not hurt the bees, it simply blocks the pheromones being emitted and makes the bees work away from the smoke because they think there's an actual fire and they want to be with the rest of their hive to protect it. After letting that hive sit for a while, the bees have calmed down and are clearly packed into this hive, and I can leave it here for a few days and let that queen get mated, and then the owner can come pick this up and move it back to their house, where the bees will live out happily and hopefully expand and make a nice productive hive.